Recently, I traded my 2019 TBM 940 in on a 2023 SF50 G2 Plus. At this point, I think I'm the only pilot in history to go from a 940 to a G2 Plus, so why? The TBM has been a faithful partner for 6 years. Never a hiccup, very reliable, and just a tank. However, it's a substantial amount of capital sitting in the hangar, and my missions were almost always 2 or 4 people, and they were willing to give me the G2 Plus and $1 million so I'd have less money sitting in the hangar, and the Vision Jet is an extraordinarily comfortable aircraft. No, I've understated that. It is the most comfortable aircraft I've sat in as a pilot or passenger, and not by a little, but by a mile. And the ingress-egress was by far the easiest, so we made the trade. In my history of buying different airplanes, the first year with a new type of plane is an evaluation process where my wife and I would literally sit down after a year was gone and determine whether we would keep that type of plane or move to another. That's where I'm at now with the Vision Jet, and I'm only a couple of months into the process. Hopefully my research will be helpful to others considering the TBM and the Cirrus. What a process. Of course, you go in with a plan and some expectations, but this was more than I was expecting. Let's start from the beginning and work our way through. The test ride. A Cirrus rep brought out a brand new G2 Plus for my wife and I to experience. It was set up in the 4-seat configuration with the center console, just perfect for our expected missions to come. We were excited about the comfort and the roominess. It was beautiful, and the view for the crew was excellent, and it seemed like the windows for the middle seats were as big as a Gulfstream. I flew left seat. The side stick was definitely different, but not daunting. Everything else looked very close to the TBM's G3000 platform. The static takeoff was impressive, and the climb out in takeoff or TO mode launched us between 2,500 and 3,000 feet per minute. However, you can only use that for 2 minutes recommended or 5 minutes max before you void your warranty with Jetstream. After that, the plane settles in at MCT or max cruise thrust, which is okay, but the climb rate drops to 11 or 1,200 feet per minute. I tested the plane at 5,000 foot increments to see the cruise and the fuel burn at each interval. What I saw was a climb rate that was well below the TBM until you got to about flight level 220, and then the numbers started to snuggle up. The fuel burn was significantly higher until you got to about flight level 250. At flight level 310, we saw 61 gallons per hour. In the TBM, you'll see 55 or 56 gallons per hour. After the flight, I determined that the difference wasn't enough to not make the change. Now let's move on to the type rating and the recurrent training. Getting the type rating was a lot. The tolerances were set up for ATP rated pilots, and you have to maintain that level of competency at each recurrent. Needless to say, they're a little more picky than the TBM recurrent program. It was challenging, but it was worth it. I'm 63. Am I going to be able to maintain that level of proficiency when I'm 70? I have a G2 Plus, which is the only one you want. Anything less requires more runway, is 30 knots slower, and flies at 3,000 feet lower. Those aren't airplanes, they're mistakes. Depreciation. My 6-year-old TBM was $4.5 million new. I traded it for $4.1 million, so it lost $400,000 in 6 years, or $67,000 per year. The 2-year-old Vision Jet cost $3.1 million. It was $3.5 million new, losing $400,000 in 2 years, or $200,000 per year. There were 2 TBMs and 10 SF50 G2 Pluses for sale worldwide. The TBM is more rare. Its value has been helped with the new releases of the 960 for $5.5 million and offered FADEC and blue windows as an upgrade. Next year, with 15% tariffs in France, the 960 will be $6.3 million. This may make the 940 price climb, as it's arguably a better plane. The costs. Pay me now or pay me later. The TBM comes with 5 years of warranty and the Vision Jet with 0. You have to be on the Jetstream program to get anything on a Vision Jet. The best program is 2 years for $180,000 up front, and that buys you 300 hours of flight. That's right, you have to pay up front for every hour that you fly. It's like owning your own airplane, but having to rent it at the same time. It's a little weird. Hours can be added in 25-hour blocks for $11,500. I think you can roll over as many as 200 unused hours per year, but there's never reimbursement or credit for the next program that you have to buy. The wet cost for the Vision Jet is $1,100 per hour, no matter what. But on the program, you won't pay for anything. Everything from annuals, parts, labor, 100-hour mandatory inspections, even for Part 91 guys, tires, brakes, etc. is covered. I even had an $800 paint chip repaired for free. It also covers your $15,000 recurrent training and your $2,000 database subscription updates. I had a chance to use it, and the speed of repair was impressive, much faster than TBM. The best program on a per-hour basis is where you buy 2 years up front for $180,000. This gets you 300 hours or 150 hours per year. The base cost is $52,000. The rest are prepaid hours under the Williams Tap Blue program. They now have a program where you can pay $52,000 and then buy a minimum of 100 hours through blocks of 25 hours at $11,500 each. When you do the math, the per hour Tap Blue cost is $253 if you buy the 300 hours and $450 if you buy 100. This assumes the $52,000 program cost is the same in both programs. If you calculate the $52,000 fee into the hours you purchase, the 2-year program is $600 per hour and the 1-year 100 hour is $950 per hour. Basically, you're paying Cirrus $1,000 per week sitting still. So I'm planning on flying more to make myself feel better. The $1,100 per hour cost on the Vision Jet is a true cost of operation. The TBM cost is calculated between $750 to $1,200 per hour, but that assumes that you own it from birth to an overhaul. The fleet average is $55,000 per year on an annual, but the most I've ever paid was $25,000. Subscriptions are $1,700 per year, and recurrents are $4,500 and less stringent. Here's a few statistics. Your speed at flight level 310, the TBM 330, the Vision Jet 311. Your fuel burn at flight level 310, 55 on the TBM, 59 to 60 on the Vision Jet. Your climb to flight level 310, 19 minutes in the TBM, 30 to 35 minutes in the Vision Jet. Your range, 1,700 nautical miles in the TBM, 1,100 in the Vision Jet. Crosswinds with full flaps, 20 knots in the TBM, 16 knots in the Vision Jet. Your best glide, 120 in both. Your VREF, 85 knots in both, but the Vision Jet requires you to be a VREF plus 10 on your checks. Your pressurized baggage, 220 pounds. And on the Vision Jet, it's seating dependent. Basically, if you have the 7 seats inside the Vision Jet, there is 0 pressurized baggage available. With the 3 rear seats removed, technically you can have close to 400 pounds back there in a large area behind the middle seats. Your external unpressurized baggage, 100 pounds in the TBM and 300 pounds in the Vision Jet. Climb performance to 6,000, 1,800 to 2,000 per minute, 2,500 to 3,000 per minute in the Vision Jet. To flight level 180 and 250 and 310. You can see where it starts to equal out. Your hot section time, 1,500 to 2,000 in the TBM, 2,000 in the Vision Jet, and your TBO, 3,600 to 4,000 in the TBM and 4,000 on the Vision Jet. You need to understand also, a new motor in the TBM is going to cost you $1 million, but it's going to cost you $1.7 million in the Vision Jet. G3000 platform. Well, both use the G3000 platform, but Cirrus has modified it and calls it their Perspective Touch by Garmin. I saw 3 improvements on the Perspective Touch. the on-screen checklists, your thrust percentage is also available at the top left of the PFD, and your heading selection shows also on the MFD, allowing you to point to a target, and the winds are supposedly taken into consideration. This is very nice. However, there is one absolutely dangerous change that they made to a critical portion of flight that was, in my opinion, a mistake. On the G1000 and G3000 that I've flown on the Malibu and TBM platforms, the autopilot disconnect from the yoke does the exact same thing as though you disconnected it on the dash. In approach mode, you can expect to turn off the autopilot and lose the yaw damper. On the Vision Jet, while in approach mode, disconnecting it at the yoke is very different from the dash. Disconnecting it at the yoke also takes you out of approach mode and you lose the flight director. Yep, there went your second reference to the glide slope. Now you're in pitch mode, when you might have thought you were in glide slope mode. As a pilot, you've just been blinded. This function just happens to be the same functionality as required in the commercial airline industry. You have to remember to turn off the autopilot from the dash. At lower altitudes, I often reduce power to 85% in the TBM. You only lost a couple of knots and the burn went to 62 gallons per hour. No one reduces on the Vision Jet because the fuel costs less than the Jetstream program per hour. As you know, it doesn't make sense to always fly at flight level 310 in headwinds, so your burn at the lower altitudes that will get you to your destination will be noticeably higher in the Vision Jet. Your weight. The TBM is a tank. When I get home and back into the hangar, I have a fuel truck top off the tanks because it doesn't matter how many people or bags are in my next mission. The TBM will go. The Vision Jet, however, can't be fueled unless you know exactly what your next mission will be. I'm 250 pounds and my wife is, well, less. With 50 pounds of bags, we can top off the Vision Jet without being overweight. Sounds a little like the old Malibu Meridians. That is the main limitation of the Vision Jets. One trip we like to take in January is the Outer Banks to Providenciales. That trip is 3 to 3.5 hours wind dependent. A typical trip is me, my wife, and another couple, and about 70 pounds of bags. With the TBM, we are non-stop every time to our destination. In the Vision Jet, with my son and his wife, 290 pounds total, we have to stop in Abaco and refuel. With our heavier friends, we have to refuel in St. Augustine and refuel again in Abaco. My wife and I can make the trip non-stop, but that's it. Comparing the two directly, the Vision Jet will take an hour longer and burn an additional 142 gallons of fuel, $710. With just the two of us, we'll get there 15 minutes faster and burn 49 gallons less in the TBM. The comfort factor. The Vision Jet has it hands down. By far, it's the easiest ingress-egress of any aircraft I've ever stepped into. For a pilot and passengers, there's no aircraft with the legroom, headroom, or view that's better. At night, the TBM G3000 screens are too bright and can't be dimmed enough to see through the windscreen without a salute below your eyes. The Vision Jet can be adjusted almost to the point of not being readable. Very nice. Night flight and flight into clouds. The TBM requires an inertial separator to be on. This reduces your speed by 20%. It's horrible and a common complaint. The Vision Jet requires your engine IPS to be on in the clouds, but there's no degradation in speed. This has brought the joy of night flying back. Courtesy lights. Both are very nice. However, the Vision Jet adds lights under the aircraft and wings, making inspection and visibility very nice. The breakers on the Vision Jet are very visible at night, very well labeled. Caution and warning checklists clearly give you the exact position of the breakers you need to check. Adding oil. The TBM can be done without a ladder or step stool if you have my height and reach. The Vision Jet definitely requires a ladder. I have a 3-step 8-pounder that I bought on Amazon in the luggage compartment that I use. Fuel sampling. The TBM is easier to reach, partially because the wings are higher off the ground. With the Vision Jet, inner drains will require you to make a trip under the aircraft on your back. While both cabins are very quiet, the Vision Jet has that jet-like feel and is noticeably more quiet and smoother. The Vision Jet has a pull-down 32-inch entertainment screen for passengers. Great if you have kids, but probably will never get used. The Vision Jet has a night vision camera, which is nice at night for cloud penetration and day-night taxiing in the rain. Without a prop, your windscreen can be difficult or impossible to see through. Both can land on shorter runways, but the Vision Jet requires more for departure. I felt comfortable with 3,000 feet and maybe less with the TBM, but my current level of comfort in the Vision Jet is 3,500 feet. The Vision Jet will easily fit into a T-hanger, but the TBM is taller, 4 feet taller, and may require something bigger. It's also 4 feet wider and about 4 feet longer. Safety. Both have a safe return system, but the Vision Jet brings more. Only the Vision Jet has built-in checklists, fire suppression, and a parachute. The TBM doesn't require fire suppression because the fuel supply is shut off to the engine when it is shut down. Cleaning off the jet exhaust. The Vision Jet has this area hands down. The only thing that gets dirty is a small section between the base of the rotovators behind the exhaust section. The TBM covers the co-pilot side and about 5 foot of the top and bottom of the right wing. You also get it on the pilot side from the baggage door to about 5 foot past the pilot door and under the left elevator. I clean after every flight and it takes a minute. That rotovator. The X rotovator has some quirky issues. First is snow. You need to make sure that the aircraft nose is tied down if snow is predicted. Snow collects between the V like a shovel and can drop the tail, causing damage. Even though there's an automatic yaw damper, there can be a slight wiggle in heavier turbulence. I paid attention to it and I can slightly feel it if I concentrate, but passengers haven't noticed. Most of it is due to the placement of the engine. The pushing from a center rear placement keeps the yaw damper super busy. The TBM, however, rides like it's on rails. The ruddervator is also 25% less effective with crosswinds, and it's reflected in their numbers, 16 for the VJ and 20 for the TBM. The Vision Jet is a jet, and jets have rules that are different from anything with a prop. Everything, even an unused night vision camera, on a jet must work, or the aircraft is grounded, unless you have an MEL. When my camera was bad on delivery, I was lucky that maintenance had a camera replacement or I couldn't fly. With an MEL, the M&O section would have directed the camera breaker to be pulled and collared, and then I could fly. Without the MEL, collaring isn't recognized. On the Vision Jet, an MEL doesn't come with the plane. That baffles me. The MEL is specific to a pilot, not the plane. So I shelled out $3,500 to get one, and it takes a sign-off from your local FSDO, which takes a minimum of 60 to 90 days after you get the plane and submit your paperwork. When I change planes, even if I stay in a Vision Jet, I lose that MEL and I have to get another one. If you're Part 91, you don't have to get one, but even Part 91 pilots are grounded if anything breaks on your aircraft. All of this said, my mission is almost always 2 or 4 people. I really didn't need the 6 seats the TBM offered, and the 7 seats in a Vision Jet is really an advertising gimmick. My destinations are very predictable. I've done a little research with some service centers to figure out what their average billing is to Jetstream for reimbursement. So far, it's been less than $50,000 annually. I was able to get a first-year deal on 150 hours for my contract transfer fee and the unused hours from the prior owner. Unheard of. The plan is to run the Jetstream for the first year, and then I'm considering not using it the rest of the time. I usually own an aircraft 3 to 4 years. This could make the operating costs very close to the pay-as-you-go TBM numbers. The scary part? The service centers say they've never seen a Vision Jet without Jetstream, and some of the parts are super expensive. I had a battery, one of 2 in the plane, and a night vision camera go bad. The camera replacement was $20,000, and the lithium battery, also $20,000. There's a joke in here somewhere. Insurance. Insurance cost is mostly a reflection of the whole value. I don't have multi-engine time, so both having one motor helped. Because the Vision Jet is $1 million less than the TBM, my quote for insurance was $5,000 less on the Vision Jet. Parts availability. France can be a little finicky with the TBM getting parts to the States. Some parts are quickly available. However, I waited 1.5 years to replace a light above the pilot seat under warranty. The Vision Jet had issues with the availability of 2 parts, and they are critical. The Persolve valve and the night vision camera. One is critical for operation and the other is just a nuisance. However, the Vision Jet parts originate in America, and that is important. So what is the realistic operating costs for each aircraft? The TBM fuel burden is calculated at $60 per hour, and from my experience, that's a really good number. Right now, my fuel averages $5 per gallon. The Vision Jet averages 70 gallons per hour. Very good for a jet. The TBM fleet cost for annuals is $55,000 for parts and labor. My highest bill was $25,000, but we'll use $55,000 for this calculation. Vision owners pay nothing for any visit to the shop, but you have to calculate in the minimum of $90,000 per year in upfront costs and the Jetstream per hour costs. I'll use 2 calculations for this, the 150 hour per year and the 100-hour program. Hourly costs. Well, that's more difficult to calculate. It depends on how much you fly. My average is 100 hours per year, but I did have a low of 50 hours and a high of 125 hours. For most pilots using their aircraft for personal pleasure, this isn't uncommon. You use it when you need it or want it. I'm going to calculate 75, 100, and 125 hours here. 100-hour inspections. If you're a Part 91 pilot in a TBM, you have no 100-hour inspections. The Vision Jet is mandatory, and requires a flight. Using Jetstream hours to your nearest center and hotel and rental car, etc. I'm going to be kind and assume a 1-hour one-way trip to the center, $150 per night hotel, 2 meals at $25 each, and a rental car at $50 a day. And we'll assume that the center can get it done in a day, which isn't unreasonable. Remember, the flight will require 2 hours of Jetstream time. Ownership time. Another question is how long you own the airplane before switching to another, whether it's the same type or different. For me, I own planes for 3 to 4 years. The longest I've owned a single plane was 10 years. When I bought TBMs, I typically bought them with a couple of years of warranty left and paid nothing for service stops. For this example, I'll use 5 years. This is important for a few reasons, but one item will be the known depreciation rate. Engine depreciation. This assumption here is that the aircraft is only a few years old and for the TBM out of warranty, so problems are now paid for out of pocket. Well, Vision Jet takes that into account through Jetstream. You pay for it more like insurance than having actual problems. On the TBM, I'm assuming the above 5-year ownership experience where the next owner or several owners down the line will end up with the big bills for the hot sections or to replace the motor. This will be a huge difference between the aircrafts. Well, these are our numbers. From these numbers, you can see that the operational costs for a Vision Jet will cost a minimum of $818 and $1,298 per hour more than a TBM, or between $97,000 and $102,000 annually. Of course, you'll be shelling out $1 million more up front for a used TBM. But what if we didn't use Jetstream? Let's face it, we saved our money and have excess income that allows us to do this. We also didn't get here by spending foolishly, so why not consider self-insuring? After all, how many times are we going to see $95,000 per year on annuals? Let's look at the fixed costs. For the TBM, recurrent training and subscriptions are $6,200 annually. For the Vision Jet, it's $17,000. After speaking with a few Cirrus service centers, it's readily apparent that owners don't do this. One shop said they'd seen one, another saw 2 or 3, and it's rare. So what is the downside of coming off Jetstream? Well, let's see. My shop research shows that you will definitely pay way less for annuals. If everything's good on the airplane, you'll pay 80 hours times the shop rate. That will be just under $14,000. All of the outside items will bring the average to $20,000. If there's other things due, that will surge toward $50,000, which sounds a little like a TBM. Remember, while your airplane is down for an annual, your Jetstream clock still runs. Big ticket items that are common include things like a $20,000 battery every 2 or 3 years, and the ever problematic Persol valve, which is $28,000 plus labor. Still, cheaper than Jetstream. I spoke with Jetstream to check on penalties for the next guy to get back on the program, and they're considerable due to the Williams Total Assurance Program. If you bought a Vision Jet with 300 hours and put 200 hours on it and wanted to sell it, you'd need to pay $202.90 for the entire 500 hours that are now on the airplane, or $101,450. If that was over 2 years, it's $50,000 per year average. Now combine that with the $20,000 to $50,000 annuals, the recurrent training, and you're at $100,000, and Williams reserves the right to deny the airplane back into the program, which could make the aircraft unsellable. That is why you don't see owners outside the program. What I fail to see is why Vision Jet buyers don't just treat the airplane like they would any other airplane and pay as you go. For example, the TBM doesn't have a jet program, you pay as you go. And when it's time to sell, the buyer checks the logbooks, pays you, and off they go. There's no reason the Vision Jet community shouldn't be the same way. It's the community that kind of takes away the fun. If they can make a new owner believe that they have to be on the Jetstream program, then your jet can't be sold. So what's the Vision Jet future? I hear they're looking at some mysterious upgrade in 2027. Hopes are improvements to weight limitation and climb performance. Those are the main weaknesses. However, more power will burn more fuel and probably require a bigger wing to hold it. Oh, and I'm guessing that it will come at a much higher price. So here we are. As you might have surmised, I'm having some early buyer's remorse. Here's a summary of the main advantages of each aircraft for me. The TBM is pay-as-you-go. There's a very small cost per hour ownership if you don't run into a TBO or hot section. It will haul a lot of payload and go 1,700 nautical miles if you need it to. Great climb rate to flight level 310, 22 minutes. Safe return. Excellent short fuel capability. For the Vision Jet, super comfortable, the easiest ingress-egress. $1 million less than the TBM. Safe return and a parachute. The joy of night flight. The negatives for me, for the TBM, high purchase price, the inertial separator, night flight cloud penetration worries. For the Vision Jet, number one is Jetstream. Very limited passengers without a reduction in fuel. 30 to 35 minute climb rate to flight level 310. Am I liking it? Yes, I love flying it, but I love flying the TBM. Both are very predictable. Will I keep it when the year is over? Well, what do you think? If the 940 continues to come down in price, I'll have another one in my hangar. Well, I hope this video has been helpful in distinguishing the TBM and Vision Jet and exposing maybe the things Cirrus or Jetstream may not fully tell you about. Thanks for watching.